I'm using Tailwind in 2025 in a very simplistic way to schedule my Pinterest pins. In fact, there are a ton of new features that we are actually going to talk about in today's video, and I am not using the majority of them, but I want to show you what they are and how you can use them if you want to use Tailwind going forward to schedule your own Pinterest pins. Let's talk first about the new and updated pin scheduler. This is a feature that was reinvented inside of Tailwind and brought back in a new kind of look with new and improved features. This used to be what our pin scheduler looked like inside of Tailwind, except instead of having Pinterest image size drafts here, we had these like horizontal rows, almost in like column format. And then for a long time, we had this view, and then we dealt with the drafts editor here, and you could kind of filter in what brand you are working on, and you could see the drafts for that brand, and then you would add them to your schedule. Now we have the new and improved pin scheduler, and you have the ability to upload pins right inside of the pin scheduler, and then you can kind of work inside of here, and you can even bulk edit a lot of things, which we're actually going to get to some of those things. But before we move on, I wanted to just call out a couple of new things here at the top, which we are also going to talk about. So the made for you functionality, you can generate a pin from a URL. So let's just say we wanted to generate a pin from this Tailwind URL. I could click generate pin right inside the pin scheduler, and it will get to work generating a Pinterest pin. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the difference is in Made For You and Smart Pin. They seem like the same tool. They both use 3 credits. Honestly, Tailwind can come back and tell me what those things are, and it probably still wouldn't be that much of a difference in my own mind. I'm sure there's a difference though. But you can generate a pin from a URL here. Now that's taking a little bit of time, so I do want to move on, and I want to talk about the global pin settings. So the global pin settings are here in the pin scheduler in the top right-hand corner. This used to be a little bit different. The global pin settings used to be in the drafts when you would upload a pin, and you would be in the drafts here. There were some global pin settings when you upload, automatically choose whatever post for Instagram, like automatically select them. Kind of thing. So this is slightly different in the global pin settings. Now you can define a default pin format. You can show the tick box for simplified pin or not. I just have that off because I still don't understand the concept of simplified pins. You can have the alt text field in Tailwind automatically turned on or off. You can auto lock intervals, which we will talk about shortly. We're not going to talk about that at this second. And then you can default if you have multiple brands in your Tailwind account like I do. I've got 2. You can default which brand gets the scheduler extension functionality. So if you're always pulling things in with the scheduler, the extension function, then it will go into whatever brand you have defined. I have none selected because I have 2 brands and I don't want it to go into one or the other. That's the end of this particular new feature set within the pin scheduler and the global pin settings. Let's move on. Let's talk briefly about Smart Pin. This is not really a feature that I have been using a whole lot, but since I started playing with it before I started filming this video again, I actually could see myself using this feature because number one, for my travel blog is where I would use this feature the most, because the designs really aren't all that bad. They're really very tame in the grand scheme of Tailwind templates, but I really don't think this function or this feature inside of Tailwind works for people that do not have a lot of imagery in their blogs. Let me explain. So I have my travel blog, and inside of this travel blog, I have a lot of imagery of different places that I have been to, and I can use all of this imagery in my blog posts, Pinterest pins. So this function is actually really enticing for my travel blog, but it does not work really at all for the heatherfarris.com website, because I don't, while I have some mock-ups and things in there, I don't really have things that would make a good Pinterest pin. Now you can change the pin design actually, and let's go ahead and talk about that. So you could, like I could very well use this and I could drag and drop images in here for my Heather Farris site, and I can change the images. But at this point, I'm really not saving myself a ton of time. I would probably update the design with brand photos instead of images from the blog. Now, here is where Smart Pin gets smart, okay? You can generate pins with Smart Pin and you can choose what images you want to include. This one was set up earlier this year before this feature was updated, where you couldn't choose the images that the Smart Pin functionality would pull in. Now that that feature has been updated, we can now create a Smart Pin together and we can tell it what images to use from the blog post. So you're going to click Smart Pin, you're going to paste in your URL if there are specific keywords you want the ghostwriter to use. So this blog post is about Cologne, Germany. Okay, let's say we wanted to use these keywords. We're going to click Next, and it's going to add this into our queue of pins to start making. Now it's going, before it does that, it's going to say, hey, here are all the images that we pulled out of this blog post. Which images do you want us to use? And you can go and start selecting, or you can say, let Tailwind choose for me. I would probably default, because I'm an absolute control freak, to me selecting my own images, because you can see there's actually images in there that it was selecting from other places on my website, and I don't really want that. Now this doesn't actually take very long to generate a Pinterest pin, but I'm gonna go ahead and just turn this one on, and then I'm going to let this finish, and I'll be back with you. Okay, we have the pin for review, and it looks like it has generated one here for me. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hover over and click Change Pin Design, and it's chosen 4 templates for us, so 3 with text overlay and 1 with no text overlay. I'm going to go ahead and choose this one, and I'm going to click Change Color, and I'm actually just going to bring in my brand colors. And we're going to see what these look like. And then I'm going to go to change fonts, and I'm going to change it to a curated font pairing. And I'm going to go back to color and click update design. Okay, this isn't terrible. I'm not a huge fan of that particular green for this use case. So let's change it to the black in my color palette and click update design. I like that better. So I'm going to go ahead and save that one, so then we can actually add this new updated one, as well as these 2 to our queue. Now it's already generated copy for us, as well as titles, and it's added the URL. So the only thing we need to do here is just add our boards. So for this one, I'm gonna do Germany travel, and I'm going to just quickly show you how to use the alt text generator if you wanted to make all of your designs super accessible to everyone on Pinterest. You just drop your design into here, and it's going to generate alt text for you, and then you can quickly bring this over. Now, a huge benefit would be obviously if Tailwind could, with their ghostwriter, actually just automatically create alt text for you. Go ahead and just drop that into the queue. And then this one is Netherlands. So I'm going to go ahead and just do Netherlands day trips. And this one is also Europe, but it's art museums. So I'm going to go to museums in Europe. And then, of course, again, if you wanted to do the alt text, you can see how fast this alt text generator actually generates. And you can pop that in. Then click schedule. Let's move on to the next feature, which is the Canva integration. Okay, so this is probably my favorite new feature out of all of the new features that they have given us in 2025, and this is the Canva integration with Tailwind. So Tailwind actually pushed their tool into Canva. If you want to see the full new feature video, I will put it in the description box down below. But you want to go into apps, and then you want to find the Tailwind app. So make sure you're logged into the right Tailwind account. If you're a Pinterest manager, make sure you're only logged into the account that you're working on, because you don't want Pinterest pins going into the wrong client account. Then inside of apps, search for Tailwind, and it will be listed here, and open it up. There's no like giving permissions or anything like that. It's just whatever Tailwind account you have opened in your browser is where this is going to go. So I have this Tailwind account open in my browser, and these are the Pinterest pins for the week of September 22nd to the 30th. All I need to do here, if I want to use this feature the way that I personally use it, is I make all my designs, and then I click share to Tailwind. Because all of these are for different URLs on my blog, I don't actually want to do any design work, or not design work, copy work on them in here. I want to create those titles and descriptions either inside of Tailwind or inside of my Pinterest system, or even using my pin bot for ChatGPT. I'm not going to do that work inside of Canva. So go ahead and click share to Tailwind. This is the feature I use. Choose the file type and the file pages and click export. Once you have done this, and it says that they are shared over here on the left, you can go and refresh your Tailwind screen. So let's just wait for this to be done. There it is. It's done. It shows you all the images it exported. Now we're going to go to Pin Scheduler, and we're going to do a hard refresh of this app. Once you do a hard refresh on your Tailwind account, you will now see these pins inside of your queue, ready to create copy, add the links, add the boards, and all of that good stuff. So that is the new Canva integration. Let's talk next about the bulk ghostwriter edit feature. So if you have one pin that is, or one URL that you've made like 5 pins for, you can actually go and do a bulk edit with the ghostwriter now. So these two are for the same, URL. I'm not actually going to schedule these. I'm just going to show you how to do the ghostwriter feature. Click the ghostwriter button after you select both of them. Choose the content that you're posting about, like the option that you're posting about, and then put that information in. And then once you have added in your keywords and phrases, click Generate Pin Details, and it's going to start doing a bulk generation for you for both of or all of the images that you chose. And then you can filter through. Now it does use 3 credits for each, so keep that in mind. One of my hacks is to always take the copy out of here and paste it into your Pinterest system to use later. But filter through and decide which one of these that you want to do. Click this button for save. It's automatically chosen for you, but if you do want to save it, make sure the blue check mark is there. And then I don't actually want to schedule this one, but this one we can schedule that one even though it's squatty. And I'm going to click Save Details. You can also click the button to try again if you don't like the copy it generated for you. Once those details have been saved, we can go back to this pin scheduler. And the details here are saved for this tiny one. And then we can go ahead and save this one, and we can put it into our schedule. Now I'm going to delete this guy because that is not a pin design that I care for. It's like all cut off. Okay, so those are your bulk ghostwriter edit feature updates. All right, let's chat about the shuffle button and the interval pin settings, as well as pin spacing. And then I'm going to talk to you about how I'm personally, as a Pinterest manager, using Tailwind in 2025. So what I like to do is obviously play with all the features, test them out, and then come back and report to you. So that's basically what we're doing today. So what you want to do with the interval spacing, there is still intervals available, but there's also this feature called pin spacing. One has not necessarily replaced the other, and that is a correction I want to make in the previous video about pin spacing that I made. One does not necessarily replace the other. Pin spacing is not necessarily replacing intervals, in my mind, it really does kind of replace intervals, but both features are still available. So let's say we wanted to add this pin that I've fully optimized to all 5 of these boards. If you click the pin spacing functionality of 7 days here, you can actually turn it off and you can choose how often you want the interval to be between these pins and what the start date of the first pin is. So let's say we want the start date to be the 11th at 3:23 a.m. Sure. I'm going to go ahead and click save and then schedule, and it's going to place that pin every 7 days in my feed, and it's going to lock that feature. Now, let's say we have another pin that we want to add in that is going to the same exact URL. And we added it in to start on September 11th as well. And we wanted to shuffle it around. You would need to come in and actually unlock the pin. And if you click shuffle, it will shuffle your pins around that are not locked. So you can see how those shuffled around a little bit. If the pin, though, is locked, which you can click on, you can kind of hover over it and you can lock it up here, or you can edit it and lock it. They won't shuffle if they are locked. Now, where this gets really neat, and there are more, obviously probably more updates coming to this functionality, is with pin spacing. If you do have pin spacing turned on for some of your pins, so let's say the second variation of the same URL they created a pin for does use pin spacing rules, but this one used interval rules, the tool will still see the URL and it will see that you've clicked shuffle, but it still honors the pin spacing. So if you have a pin spacing set for 7 days on variation 2, and then you're using intervals on variation 1, and you click shuffle, it's still not going to shuffle the second version of that pin using pin spacing within that 7-day guideline. So it's going to keep your spacing for your URLs on target. Okay? I hope that's not confusing, but I think that is a really neat functionality that they have built in. So I think this is a really neat functionality, giving you the ability to use intervals and pin spacing depending on what you really want to do. Now, I probably would tell you to just use pin spacing and not use intervals if it were me, which is how I personally use Tailwind. Is using the pin spacing functionality, I'm going to show you how I personally use Tailwind now as a Pinterest manager. So in 2025, as a Pinterest manager, I'm personally using Tailwind in a few select features. So the features that I'm prioritizing are obviously using the pin scheduler because it's so much easier to see all of the pins that I might have in draft. I'm using the Canva integration, and I'm using the insights. Those are the things that I'm using the most. Now, occasionally I do come in and use this blogs tab, and I do fill in a few posts from this tab. Now, one thing about this tab for the Heather Farris site is much like something I've mentioned throughout this video is there's not like great images to use here. It's really just the feature image. So I would have to create my own design within the Tailwind interface. So I really wouldn't want to use this for my Heather Farris site. I really would only want to use this for the Wheeling to Dream site. I am creating Pinterest pins inside of Canva. I'm exporting those pins using the Tailwind app inside of Canva to Tailwind. So I'm going to go ahead and share that to Tailwind. I'm going to export all of these files and they will come over here. I'm then optimizing these where I am adding a title, a description, and the URL. And then I'm adding them using pin spacing of 7 days. So all of my pin spacing is a default of 7 days. And I start by adding my spacing for the URLs. So if I'm making 2 pins for the exact same post, I go ahead and fully optimize one and click schedule. And then I fully optimize any other variations for that URL. And I will bulk add them into the schedule, and it automatically add them in the spacing that I have set forth in the rule. And that is how I'm using Tailwind in 2025 as a Pinterest manager. I'm not using a ton of the features that we are going to talk about in today's video because I just have not found them necessary. I use Canva for all of my design. I use my Pinbot for all of my copywriting. I use my Pinterest system to track every single thing that I do. So this is what my Pinterest system looks like, and I make a sheet for every single month of the year. So here's September. These are the this is the pin copy and the descriptions that I've written that I did before. Like, I create my plan, I write my copy, I then create my pins, and then I schedule all of my pins, and I really do it in that order. So the steps are really simple, and I actually talk about that in this Tailwind blog post, that you really should pre-write your pin titles and descriptions before you get going. It's going to make your life so much easier. So that's really how I'm using this tool as a Pinterest manager in 2025. I am, however, for my travel blog, going to be using this smart pin functionality because I do like the smart pin functionality and how it's creating those really simplistic designs for this blog, simply because this blog has a ton of images that I can pull from, and I can dictate what smart pin images should be used. So that is it. That's how I'm using Tailwind in 2025. That's how you can use it. I would definitely poke around in this blog post because I talk about a ton of the Pinterest features or the Tailwind features for Pinterest. I keep this blog post up to date every single year, so feel free to browse it and get a feel for how you can use some of these features. Take this video, play around in Tailwind, decide what you like, and then create your own Tailwind workflow. My only advice is that you stick to it for at least 90 days in order to kind of build the skill and the habit behind using it. That way you get faster and your results can come faster because you are publishing really high quality content to Pinterest on a regular routine basis, and you're not wasting a lot of time. Now that you've seen exactly how I use Tailwind as a Pinterest manager in 2025, and you want to use it for yourself, or if you want to use any of these features for yourself, you can go play with it. Of course, you can always create a free Tailwind account and you can play with some of these features and just see if they are something that you would enjoy. Now, I'm personally going to start using the smart pin functionality for the travel blog like I mentioned, but if you're tight on budget and you cannot join us inside of Pin Profit Academy, where you can get even more Pinterest marketing strategy and hands-on help from me, you can always go and watch these videos here, all about Pinterest marketing strategy, and you can just play around, be curious. That should be your goal in your marketing strategy, is to be curious. Go play with the tool, find out for yourself what it's all about, and I'll see you next time.